there's this there's this picture of a few years ago when we first started Startup Apprentice. Sam and I were accepted into this thing called the Challenge Cup in Sydney. So we went down to Sydney and we had to do this 60-second pitch. And so I got up on stage to do this 60-second pitch. And no joke, I had rehearsed it and rehearsed it and rehearsed it and rehearsed it. I got 30 seconds in, forgot a line and froze, right? And no words would come out of my mouth. And there was about 600 or 700 people in the audience. And then I managed to blurt out like one sentence at the end. It was the most awful thing. But so a couple of people got a photo of me with this like microphone in my hand, and that got tweeted out across, social networks and went out across Facebook and everything. For then the last couple of years, it keeps appearing every time that the Challenge Cup is on. Yeah. And everyone's like, oh, look at you, like up on stage. That must have been such a wonderful experience. And I just think, oh, if you had have known.
Hello and welcome to the Be The Push podcast. My name is Jack Ferguson and I'm going to be sharing with you stories of how business owners and entrepreneurs had to push through the hard times in their careers. We're going to be discussing the lessons learned from these experiences while arming you with actionable advice so you can be the push when you need it most. Show notes can be found at bethepush.com/podcast and clicking on the relevant episode link. Let's get started. So we have that story you heard coming up amongst many others in the episode ahead. This discussion is with Sharon Hunneybell, who is the CEO of the Gold Coast Innovation Hub. As you'll hear in the episode, that isn't her only role, so we discuss the ways in which she juggles multiple roles, and one of them being a CEO. Part of Sharon's story that was of particular interest to me was her involvement in founding an initiative called Startup Apprentice. So this helps children to get a taste of entrepreneurship at a young age, and it's certainly something that I would have loved to have come across when I was in school. The imposter syndrome makes a return in this episode, and we discuss how that's affected Sharon's career in a number of ways, including the story you heard just before. Sharon was really easy to talk to, very giving with her knowledge. I'm sure you'll enjoy listening to this discussion, so here we go. All right, so today we're here with Sharon Hunneybell. Sharon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, thanks.
Thanks for being with us. So you've got a few roles at the moment. You're General Manager of Opman Tech, co-founder of Startup Apprentice and CEO of the Gold Coast Innovation Hub. That sounds like you've got a lot on your plate at the moment.
I don't even know how I fit it all in.
So I want to talk about, let's talk about Startup Apprentice for a second. I think this is a really interesting business, if you will, that you started. Can you tell us about how that began?
I've been passionate about building an ecosystem, a startup ecosystem on the Gold Coast for many years. So I worked in IT before I moved to the Gold Coast. And when I got here and sort of realised that that there wasn't really an industry of IT down there, I got a bit of a bee in my bonnet and I decided this was something I wanted to change. So the first 4.5 years that I lived on the Gold Coast, I actually worked for a company in Sydney from home.
Oh, right.
And I'd have to commute every couple of weeks down there and spend time down there. And the plane was just full of like amazing CEOs and executives and accountants and just top level business people that were traveling to Sydney for the wages, but they wanted their families and to have the lifestyle of the Gold Coast, and I wanted to see something different. So anyway, so then I started looking at ways that you could make a grassroots change to that, and so I got involved with some people who were running a not-for-profit called Silicon Lakes, and we were running startup weekends to try and stimulate people to come forward with ideas and then help them to turn those into businesses. So the first startup weekend that we ran, we were trying to actually attract more female founders along. And so we had a crèche. And so any families that wanted to come along, we'd look after their kids for them. What actually happened was the kids observed what the adults were doing and got quite inspired. So when we ran our second startup weekend 6 months later, the children of these people that had participated came back and pitched ideas. And my daughter was actually there. She was about 13 at the time. She was having a bit of a sulk because she didn't really want to be there, and Mum, why do you have to always organise these events? And anyway, she saw this 10-year-old boy pitch an idea for an app. He wanted to take a photo of anything and turn it into a dot-to-dot drawing so that he could draw it. And she just loved the idea. So she came over to me and she said, Mum, can I join a team? And I was like, yes, please do. It'll be wonderful for you. So she did. And I just watched her over the course of that weekend just completely transform. So she was really going through a bit of a hard time at school, and she was becoming a bit sort of reclusive and disengaged, and she got so excited. She designed the interface for this app. She created the presentation and spoke at the presentation night, which she was quite shy, so that was a big thing. She went out to this shopping centre, and they pre-sold 13 copies of this $2 app. So they made $26 on the weekend.
Nice.
And it was just amazing seeing the transformation. So as we were debriefing after the startup weekend, we just started talking, myself and my co-founder Sam and Aaron Birkby, who was running Silicon Lakes at the time. And I said, you know what, this is something that our kids should be doing in schools. Like, imagine if our kids got that excited about the things that they were learning in schools. So we put together a really quick sort of like pitch deck and said, and I sent it over to Aaron. I said, I think this is what we should be doing. Anyway, I think he passed it to council, and I didn't even realise. And by the end of the day, I'd had 2 phone calls. One was from the Smith Family Partnerships organisation, asking us asking to make some introductions to some schools who'd be interested in running the programs. And the other was from the Gold Coast City Council, because the mayor was interested in running some programs. So that basically turned into this. We went out to the school. We worked with the school, which was Varsity College, to create the first program, an 8-week in-school accelerator program, to teach kids to go from where do ideas come from down to creating and presenting an actual product. And then the MES Telstra Technology Awards also sort of streamed out of that. So we've been partners in that for the last 4 years as well. So that's, that sort of takes those top ideas and they get to present to the mayor and win great prizes.
It's so cool.
Telstra, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Startup Apprentice, we've had 1,000 kids have gone through our various workshops and programs. We partner with lots of other groups to run workshops and things like that. So we're partnered with Bond to do the Somerset College's Entrepreneurship Festival next week. Again, we've got the second round of judging for the Mayor's Tech Awards is next week as well. So, yeah, lots going on.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I'd just be interested in the kids that get excited about this type of thing. Are some of them quite disillusioned with school, and this gives them, something, something else?
Yeah, we've run the program with all sorts of kids. So the way that we do it is we work with individual teachers and we map the program to the curriculum. So the first time we ran it, we did it as an after-school program. The school then said, we'd love to bring this into curriculum. They helped us to do it the first time. We delivered that with 60 gifted maths students. But then from there on in, we've worked with all different groups. So we've worked with a group who were doing, what was it called? Like material design, I think the class was called. And so mostly they were like woodwork type trade students. And those guys, they're just counting down the days till they can leave school and do a trade.
Yeah.
So they are disengaged. They don't like the classroom environment. Yeah. It was definitely challenging trying to get their attention and move them through it. But at the end of that particular program, we saw some of the best products and ideas come out of it, because they are actually really creative kids. And I think a lot of the reason why they do get disengaged at school is they can't handle that structure and just being pumped full of information that they can't apply, and they can't understand what to do with it. And so when you put them in a circumstance where they can take information quickly and apply it in a real world way, it's a very different situation.
Yeah, and I imagine those people. Yeah, you're kind of saying there. I imagine those kids that they're quite the practical ones. So they get stuff done. Whereas maybe more of the academic types, which I was that back in the day. Maybe I would have procrastinated a little bit and mucked around, and when it comes to the actual getting stuff done.
Yeah. Well, it's a different focus, and this has been part of the issue with scaling the program. To be honest, is finding facilitators that can pick up the sort of the vibe and the feel of where the students are at and be able to adapt the program according to that. So yes, when you're running the program with gifted students, for example, who are absolute perfectionists, you need to adapt the programs to actually encourage them. It's got to have more focus on not worrying about failure and feeling comfortable speaking out loud. And so there's a lot more focus on pitch practice, and there's a lot more encouragement and a lot more clapping and cheering them on, and a lot and you know, those sorts of things. Whereas when you're working with the students that are less engaged, it's more about getting very quickly into the prototyping stage. They actually really love the business model part too, like being able to actually see a product and then doing the maths to work out how am I going to make money and how much could I actually make. Like they love that part of it, you know. So
no, I think it's amazing what you're doing. I would have loved something like this at school. Even though I was quite good at school, I did really well in school. But you know, the first time I touched entrepreneurship was probably 22, 23. So it's almost like from what I can gather, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're getting that first touch maybe 10 years before that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? We all know the rate of failure, and so I think it's really important that these kids get to experience the thrill of creating something out of thin air that could potentially become a business, make them money, but to be able to do that in a protected environment. And we work really hard as well to bring in mentors and subject matter experts and things like that are passionate about what we're doing, and that are prepared to create like lifelong sort of relationships with these kids, so that as they sort of grow and they come up with other ideas, they've already got real world connections that are going to be able to help them turn those into businesses when they get the one that's going to go. And so it's really important. The other thing I love, I used to do a lot more of the hands-on stuff with the Mayor's Tech Awards. More recently, I've just been sitting on the judging panel as I've become busier. But there's some kids that are in there that have entered every single year, and they come up with different ideas, but they're still super passionate. And as soon as I get in there, they're like, "Oh, you've got to see what I've made this time!" And I just love it. I think the world, passionate people, they're just the best thing in the world. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so cool to hear that, and so cool that you could see that happen with your own daughter, and and just like, are we talking about a complete change in sort of outlook over a weekend? Is this the type of impact that had?
We had after I remember we were in the first program, which was actually very, very stressful, because so the students learn very, very quickly, but they need constant engagement. And so I'd set out the 8-week program in the way that I probably would teach adults to do it, and also adults are very fear averse, and we've already got preset ideas of what you can and can't achieve. So you spend a lot of time when you're running the programs with adults convincing them to give something a try, or why don't you try and get some customers to have a look, and you really need to speak to some people about this. And whereas with the kids, you'll go, okay, you're going to need to get 20 customer surveys, and they'll go, oh, okay, and they'll just run out, and then 15 minutes later they're back and they go, okay, what now?
Right.
Oh, okay, that was meant to be the whole session. So But so it was very trying. But I remember on the final evening, when all the kids presented their ideas, I had 2 or 3 of the parents in particular came over and just said, our kids are different children from having participated in this program. And what they saw more than anything was that their kids had become alert to the world that was around them and were actively searching for opportunities to improve things. And to solve problems. So they were coming up with ideas at the breakfast table, whereas they had, whether it was previously they would have had their head stuck in their phone, and instead, mum's there and she's just burnt the toast, and they'll be going, oh, I wonder if you can create a different type of toaster that can sense whether it's going to burn, or things like that.
That's so cool.
And it's great. I think it's so important to empower our kids to know that there's that. that they can create their own destiny, they can create their own careers, and that there's people out there that are going to back them and support them to do that. So, yeah.
And it is almost like the way, I mean, I'm just thinking from my experience, but it is, you don't know of this world really before you are exposed to it, do you? I mean, I felt that. I was, my kind of paradigm shift was I read Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Workweek, and I just thought completely differently after that book, and it's been a
I've never read it.
Oh, okay.
Do I need to?
I don't. Well, it started everything for me. I suppose I'm just saying in the same sense that it sounds like you. This is what these kids. That's the experiences they taste the forbidden fruit, if you will.
Yeah.
And then life's different from then on. But that sounds amazing. I do want to know, so you've got Startup Apprentice. You're also the CEO of the Gold Coast Innovation Hub, like I mentioned before, but also a general manager of a company. Now, these are not small roles, and you're doing them all together.
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
Well, they all kind of loop into each other.
Okay.
So what with Startup Apprentice, when we first launched that, I was trying to work out what to do. We had a few school bookings. We're making a little bit of revenue, but it was in November, and so school was about to close for 3 months. And so I was like, okay, I need to have some income coming in. So do I take on a job, or what do I do for the next few months? And so Danny Ma, who's the CEO of Opmantech, he was one of our mentors that used to come into Silicon Lakes, and also did some stuff with the school programs. He's a great commercializer of innovation. He's very, very good at getting deals closed and coming up with clever ideas for how to, reframe a product in new ways. So he said to me, look, I'd love to support what you're doing with the school programs, but I don't, Opmantech isn't in a place really at the moment where we could sponsor it. But what I can do is offer you a flexible contract. So you can come and work with me, because I could do with someone who's got your skills, coming and working with me. And then when you're not, so you do school programs when you've got them on, and when you're not, come and work at Opmantech. So I originally joined at Opmantech as a community manager, and my role was they had an open source product, 2 open source products actually, and they had a community of users that have been downloading using the free product. They just built out a whole heap of commercial modules, but they were struggling to work out how do we get the people to move from the free product to the commercial modules. So my job was pretty much to do some really soft marketing, because you've got to be, with the open source guys, there's people that are contributing code and things like that, so they aren't always getting something for free. A lot of them do the right thing, contribute back. So we didn't want to market hard to them, but we did want to try and let them see the value in purchasing either support agreements or purchasing the paid modules. So I started off just working on some marketing stuff, and then gradually the role sort of progressed. The company started growing. We started doing a bit better. So Sam and I worked to move Startup Apprentice into more of a facilitator model, and then I moved into Opmantech full time. So then I worked for 2 years as the general manager of Opmantech, and then towards the end of last year, the state government announced that they were going to fund some innovation hubs. Now, we'd always had a bit of a vision, or Danny had always had a vision to use Opmantech almost like a template for Gold Coast businesses. So whenever we were having conversations with suppliers and people overseas, it was always like, we're the first Aussie company you're dealing with, but we're going to be bringing other people down the same tracks, and we wanted to create like an innovation factory one day. So anyway, when it was announced that there was going to be funding for an innovation hub, he sort of said, you know what, Sharon, this is what you'd always wanted to do a long time ago when you were at Silicon Lakes. This is the vision that we've always had for Opmantech. It's a little bit earlier than what we were going to do, but let's do it. Let's build this innovation factory on the Gold Coast, and let's get it up and running. So we then formed this collaborative agreement with all of the, I guess, people. I mean, it's funny, that Steve Jobs has his join the dots backwards sort of stuff, but everything has joined together now. So all of these, like all the universities that I've talked at and encouraged students to come along to our startup activities, and the the lawyers that we've worked with, and accountants and advisory firms, and all the guys that we'd built these relationships with purely through the community things that we were doing, or throughout Mantec, all came on board. So we ended up with this fantastic collaborative action plan, and which is backed by state government, by local government, and by commercial businesses. And we've got about a $1.8 million sort of parcel there of services and funds to be able to roll something out on the Gold Coast. So that's how the hub happened.
Right.
And so yes, I'm the CEO of that. So
as well.
Yeah.
But I still want to know how you manage your time.
Oh goodness. Okay, so I work really, really long hours.
Yeah.
I have so Sam works for Startup Apprentice full time.
Mm-hmm.
And she's wonderful with organising our facilitators and liaising with the schools and doing all those things. With Mantec, I've had to gradually let go a little of some of the things that I was doing in that general manager role. So, and it had become, because the company had grown, I was becoming stretched in some of the things that I was doing. So I was managing all of our communication and PR and marketing, and a lot of our like sort of BA work, so feeding stuff back to the IT department. I can't even, anyway, managing grants and all those sorts of things, reporting, project management. So what I've basically had to do is work out what things I'm doing and which things are making the most time and which things are am I best spending my time doing, and then gradually started farming out some of those activities. So we now have a marketing team, whereas we used to have a marketing girl that was also the general manager. So we've started hiring some more people, and I have to admit that it's actually really nice to be able to keep my head more at a strategic level. We've hired good people, so I feel confident that the things that we decide we're going to do are going to get done. Mm-hmm. And so it's all about that. And then with the hub, yes, it's an enormous project. But again, we've got people around us that are supporting us. There's people that are experts in their various fields, and we've got a very diverse team that all will be able to pull together the things that we need to do. And so again, it's just about not getting too bogged down in the details and remembering that I've got all these people around me to support me and to call on them for help, and that's pretty much it. So it's sort of a juggling act at the moment, but it's great, and I'm so excited to see this transformation on the Gold Coast that I'd sort of imagined when I first came there. So it feels wonderful to be a part of that, and we also wanted to sort of unite some of the groups on the Gold Coast, and I feel like we're actually managing to achieve that as well. And I think if we can get a really good, cohesive sort of this action plan in place, that will create some insane momentum down there.
Oh, right. Yeah. So do you feel in the past it has been a little sort of fractured down there almost?
Absolutely. It's a shame, because it's so the Gold Coast has one of the highest rates of entrepreneurship in the country. They've got 1 in 5 people run their own business on the Gold Coast, or at least have a registered ABN. So they're doing, they're working for themselves. Yep. But we don't have, there wasn't a central innovation hub. Mm-hmm. There's a few co-working spaces that are all doing good things, but there's different groups. Like there's the tech space, which is a maker space. There's IT forums that's been going for 20 years to sort of empower and work with the tech community. There's some cool stuff going on with the health and knowledge precinct, but everyone was working in silos. And so if you had investors coming to the coast that wanted to connect with startups, there wasn't really somewhere to send them. They could do a little tour of some of those spots, and there'd be 1 or 2 startups in those spaces, but we want to be like, we want to create that lighthouse in the middle. So we've actually partnered with the spaces that are around the Gold Coast as well. So they're our outreach locations, and we'll be putting some funds into running both our programs and in their spaces to for people that are in those, the more regional parts of the Gold Coast. And then we'll also be sort of funding them to run activities, in our space and things like that. So we want to share the wealth, and we want to make sure that all the people that are doing the best things are spending their time doing the best things, and that we're supporting them in the bits that they're not so good at. So, for instance, a lot of the tech groups have got some amazing knowledge. They don't know how to market themselves,
right?
And so we can bring that to it. Again, they might have some great knowledge. They don't know how to package that up as a training program. We can work with them to turn it into a 5-week seminar series or whatever it is, and then help to roll that out to the community if we see it's got value. So
right, very cool. You're doing amazing things.
Yeah.
So that sounds absolutely brilliant. All right, so I want to talk now about on this podcast we talk about times that were more difficult than others. When you hear or someone asks you what were the tough times that you had in your career, what's the first thing that comes to mind there? What's the first story that you've got for us?
So tough times. I think the toughest times that I had in my career was just overcoming my own mental blocks. I've always been up for a challenge, and I do. I love solving problems, and I love working as part of a team. And but I always had a little bit of an issue working in IT, that I didn't actually have an IT qualification. So I fell into IT when I was much younger. So I'd taken a couple of jobs that had evolved into digital marketing type roles, and then that had evolved into a digital imaging business that I'd run, and that had moved into doing some website design. And anyway, so I ended up working in IT, but without IT qualifications. And so quite often when there are opportunities to advance in the IT department or to take on a new project, I'd find myself second guessing whether I should actually be doing it because I wasn't in my mind qualified. And so I had to, I suppose the only way that you can actually break out of that is by actually doing the things. And so I was really quite lucky that in most of the roles that I've had sort of, I guess, champions behind me who believed in me more than I believed in myself. So there was, IT managers, sometimes might be a programmer on my development team or something like that, where when an opportunity came up to run a project, for example, they'd go, "You should go for that." And I go, "Oh, I can't go for that. That's huge," and they go, "Yeah, you can, you've got, you did this and you did that." Yeah. And or just, "I think you can, and I'll support you, and I'll make sure that I help you if you get stuck." And those sorts of things, which then push you to take on those bigger projects and bigger roles. It does, it becomes easier as you go, but definitely for me, overcoming that imposter syndrome and backing myself to get things done and to try things and put things out there was a massive barrier. But once I overcame it, I've just had such an amazing experience in life. Even, well, at the moment, I've just bitten off this hub project, which is phenomenal. And, we're setting up a giant building, a 2,000 square meter building that's going to house 500 different startups on the Gold Coast. And, I know nothing about real estate. I've been having to negotiate leases and so it's a whole new world, but it's not as scary to me now because I've embarked on so many projects now in my life, and been able to deliver them successfully. And so as long as you've got the people around you to support you, you're good to go, I think. So
yeah, that's really interesting. So with you talk about the imposter syndrome there, it almost sounds like you don't need to know anymore, that you don't need to know absolutely everything about the project before you get underway, and you kind of got to. It sounds like you're saying you figure it out as you go a little bit as well.
Definitely. You got to you have your big picture. Well, I mean, all projects are actually the same, right? I mean, you have to break down the work into chunks. You've got to work out which things you do first, and once you've done that, it becomes a lot easier. So you work out what do I need to do? Who do I need to help me with this? And then you just go one bit at a time, and
very cool. So from that moment onwards, that was an instant cure, or did you work at that for a couple of years?
No, right. It took me I started working in sort of corporate IT in 2006, and so it was probably it was probably sort of 7 or 8 years of taking on, or just having people push me to take on the bigger and better projects. I'm not actually sure at which point I really started to feel like I can do this. I mean, I think with Startup Apprentice, for example, I just knew that it had to happen. You know what? The hub's probably the same, to be honest. When I can see the change in my mind, I can see what we're going to be able to create here, and all I have to convince myself of is that I'm the right person to do it. And if I'm not, that I've got the right people to help me do it, or and that's it. So I guess maybe that's what's changed a little, right? Is that back when I was working in corporate IT, I was trying to climb a ladder. And when you're trying to climb a corporate ladder, there's people who are, ticking boxes to say that you should have this, that, and the other to be able to complete this. And so, you kind of judge yourself and you judge your worth on whether you've got the right pieces of paper, and you've got a very clear job description there when you're trying to climb the corporate ladder as well. So if you don't have experience in every area, you think that you probably shouldn't apply for the job. I mean, there's some, I haven't seen, I can't quote the exact stats, but it's something like apparently women need to be something like meet 85% of a job criteria before they're prepared to go for it, whereas men, it's something like 40%. So guys are more happy to go, I've done these few things and I can do those couples, so I'll go for it. Whereas as women, we sit there and we go, oh my goodness, well, I actually have never done these two things, so I shouldn't go for it. I'm not qualified.
Right.
But the entrepreneurial path's different, right? There's no tick boxes. You don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
You are going on instinct, and you're going on those. You've got your big picture, and you're going on those bite-sized little chunks, and you just go, "Can I deliver this one? Yes, I can." And you just keep going. So it's probably just a different fuel, different expectations on yourself, and a different way of being.
That's really interesting, because you touched on a point there about entrepreneurship being a different beast and all that. And sometimes, I don't know if I consider myself an entrepreneur, but I do some things that are different, and sometimes I struggle to get the message across that it's kind of feels like, to me, it's more about the mission than it is about a label, or like people, what do you do today? And I'm trying to think. I'm trying to build a podcast. I might be trying to help my clients with this and that, but I'm not really thinking of I'm a manager or I find that a big difference, and it's just a whole different way of looking at it.
Yeah, well, you're operating on a big picture scale, right? So you know what you want to achieve, and sometimes it feels like you're getting nowhere, and a lot of the time you're very stretched, and a lot of times you're getting distracted on small details and new occurrences that sort of crop up along the way that you didn't expect were going to happen. So there's a lot of frustration. You never get to where you think you're going to go as quickly as you want to. But I like, when I look back from sort of like when we first just started volunteering and running startup weekends on the Gold Coast to where we are now, and there was always a vision there. I never knew how I was going to get there. And as you know, and as I sort of went through earlier, it was a very unusual path to go through the school programs and then to running a startup, or massive scale up these days. Augmentec's huge, but and then moving back to creating that hub in the center of it all. But it's the vision was always there to transform the Gold Coast, and you just seem to manage to get there somehow, right?
Yep.
Well, I mean, it's not transformed yet, but we're getting there. You just wait.
I definitely think that you're getting there. So, what about work-life balance? Like, how do you deal with that? I mean, it sounds like you do a lot of work. And,
I used to give myself such a hard time for the number of hours I worked, and you know what, my family, well, like my mum, for example, oh my goodness, she's always telling me that I need to relax more and take time off, and I shouldn't be working all the time and all this sort of stuff. But I decided a really long time ago that work-life balance is actually about feeling happy and energized and balanced as a human being, and that I happen to know that an ingredient that I need to have those things is to feel like I'm being productive and working hard and making a change. And so I sort of have and also if you're focused on global businesses like Augmentec, you got no chance whatsoever of having a traditional 9-to-5 workday. You know, I mean, we've got sales teams all over the world. And you have to be up first thing in the morning to talk to the teams that are in the US, and then you need to be up late at night to talk to the ones that are in Europe and the UK. And so you work these phenomenal long hours. So you just got to make sure that you're enjoying it, and you're taking time out. You know, you do take some time out and have some flexibility during the day, and that you're keeping your mental stamina going. If someone said to me, you know what, you need to have a week off, and I want you to just go and sit in this room and or sit on the beach and do nothing, I'd go stir crazy, you know, like
I can relate to that. Yeah.
Even when I was like, a teenager, I'd always be creating, always painting or drawing or sketching or coming up with ideas or creating clubs for my friends, or just always doing something. I've never had any desire to just do nothing.
Lie around.
I even struggle to watch Netflix.
Really?
Even when it's a really good series, I'm like, put the computer away, Sharon. Just watch it for a bit.
Right. So do you relax at all over the weekends, or do you have any time that you relax?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
But it's still making.
Right.
So the way that I relax, I need time out from people, because I'm always working with people at the moment. And so I try and lock myself away, usually on a Saturday. And my best form of sort of release and rejuvenation is to do something creative. So sometimes I sew. I love making my own like dresses and clothing, and I love to paint. I do, and then I do like really daggy hobbies. Like I do like cross stitch embroidery and crochet and knitting and just whatever takes my fancy. I just create stuff.
Yeah.
But I like doing that in solitude and just letting my imagination and creativity just flow. And I just find that if I've spent a bit of time doing that, then I'm just ready to go and deal with people again.
Yeah, right.
The other good one is hikes as well.
Okay,
the Gold Coast Hub, we've actually got a couple of teams of people that are going to do the Kokoda Challenge next year.
Okay.
And so we've got some groups that are going out every couple of weeks, and we're going on these big adventures and hikes, and that's also good to be able to sort of get into the wilderness and disconnected for a couple of hours. But definitely you
still need to be in some sort of zone by the sounds. You need to still be
it can't be what's the word?
Yeah. If I'm just if I'm in an office or at home and there's a laptop nearby and a phone nearby, it's a very good chance I'm just going to pick them up and start working again.
Yeah.
So got to remove that sort of obsessive compulsion that I have to always be working.
Yeah, but you feel you can avoid burnout, because that's a few times I think maybe at those times I didn't have any outlet or release at all, and you're just working day after day after day, and then what I would do is I'd burn out for a week, and just be absolutely useless for a whole week. And then I thought to myself, well, it's probably better to plan out those those recharging times.
Yeah, well, I do know that I need them, so I do make sure that every week I at least have sort of like a good chunk of time on one of the days of the weekend just to myself, which is just lazy time, creative time, whatever I want it to be. Prior to that, when because it's actually, to keep that time to yourself, you actually have to knock back people's offers to come over for I haven't seen you all week, you're always working, come over and have a cup of tea, or come over and have lunch. And it's like, no, I need my me time.
Yeah.
But yeah, prior to that, I have had instances where I felt like I'm burning out, and so it's now I know what I need to rejuvenate. I also know a little bit more about how to delegate activities, and I'm a little bit more comfortable with delegating things at work. So most of my burnout would come from when I felt like my to-do list was growing and growing and growing, and then what I would do is I'd just start working through the to-do list instead of taking a step back and going, hang on, who else can do this? You were talking about your 4-hour work week, whatever it was, book. So the book that I always drew a lot, or I've always drawn a lot of inspiration from, is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
All right. See, I haven't read that one. Should I read that?
Well, there's a chapter in there about sort of, what's it called? About, you have these quadrants that you work in. So you have urgent and important, urgent and not important. Anyway, I can't remember. This is a really terrible description of it. But basically, anyway, it's really, you want to be working in a space where you're doing things that are important but not urgent at all times. And it has quite some good strategies and some good descriptions of how you should, be viewing various tasks and the best ways that you can maximize your time to be most effective. It's I think it's quadrant B that you're meant to be working in.
Okay.
Anyway.
Is that because if something's urgent, does that drop the quality of the work?
Well, yeah, that's right. And you're always working in a manic state as well.
Yeah.
If you're doing things that are not important and urgent as well, it's like that's not a good place to be working in. So and we all find ourselves in those spaces where people are hammering you for things, and you get yourself all worked up to try and deliver something, and then you go, well, what was the purpose of that? How did that serve me? Like, you're actually, a lot of the time you're just trying to quieten the noise. Whereas if you're working in that other sort of space, then you are doing the things that need to get done.
Very interesting. I've had that experience recently, even in the last week. The difference between me working in an office with all the chatter and the getting interrupted and the blah blah blah, compared to working at home, I reckon I could get 1 day at home would be about equivalent to 3 days in an office. For me, that's how big the difference is for me. But it sounds like it's probably
one day at home you'd be more productive. Oh, really?
Yeah, I'd produce more than 3 days in an office, because especially if it's an office where people are talking a lot and you're getting interrupted a lot, because it seems I've had experiences where people will, if you're not there, they won't bug you with the unimportant stuff. But if you're there,
that's true actually. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you do that, and that's a prime example of where you're doing those sorts of urgent, unimportant things. But also, if you're working on the things that are important but not urgent, they hopefully will never fall into that urgent and important category, right?
Right. Cool.
Anyway.
I've also got, I see you've got written here that one of your skills are at breaking down complex processes and making them easier to do, I suppose. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, it's Yeah, because you'd sort of asked me what do I consider, whether I consider myself to be an expert in anything, which I absolutely don't. But it's one of those things that has come out in my career, and it's kind of where I ended up. It's one of the reasons why I ended up working in IT was so I spent a lot of time working in like BA roles or so business analyst roles within project teams or as a project manager, it's for all the reasons why I probably was quite good at creating the programs for Startup Apprentice. It's probably the reasons why I'm able to deliver quite big projects like the Hub very easily. It's that being able to see the big picture and then be able to visualize, where or break down where are the chunks, where are the manageable chunks or milestones, and moving those down into small sizes, and like with the school programs and things like that, for example. I've also, and actually even when I'm delivering training for adults, or when I'm doing software training, or delivering specs for developers, I don't really know I don't know why my brain works like that. I don't know why. I didn't even realize it was a skill. I thought it was something that everyone could do, that everyone could take a look at something and realize what the ingredients were. That everyone could look at a cake and go, okay, it's going to need to have butter and sugar and flour or whatever. Yeah. But it actually turns out that it's quite a unique skill to be able to break those things down.
Right.
And so it's somewhere where I've always found myself at home. So I'm always the person creating the instructions.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you have to, I'm assuming, lead a lot then as well?
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a leader?
Yes, but not in the most traditional sense, because I'm quite introverted. And so, I guess it's just how you picture a leader, right? I suppose I am. I've had lots of kids who've gone through my programs. When we're doing projects and things like that, I've got lots of people who back me and support me and take instruction from me. So yeah. I guess I am. But my vision of a leader is someone that's, is one of those people that can stand up on stage and inspire everyone. And that's not really me. Right. I get so tongue-tied and I get very nervous, and I'm a leader in the practical sense, but not in the,
out there, extroverted.
Physical sense, yeah.
In the physical. Yeah, that's interesting. So that's your kind of, when you think leader, you think of the. Yeah,
it's probably my imposter syndrome playing up again,
yeah.
right? I don't fit the picture of a leader, therefore I'm not one.
I'll add this just for the listeners. Sharon's spoken at one of my events before where there was about 100 people there, and you spoke very well. So.
Oh my God, my stomach was in butterflies for about 4 hours beforehand. Anyway.
Yeah, and that's really surprising to someone like me. So you maybe you don't see yourself like that, but a lot of other people see you as that that person who can lead and can has got a lot of value.
I force myself to do the public speaking stuff as well, though, because it's the same. It's just that same vision that I have in my head. When I have a vision for change, the only person that can communicate what's in my mind is me. So whether I like it or not, if I want people to be able to see my vision, I'm going to have to talk about it. So.
And you've been on the news recently, haven't you?
Oh God, I'm always in the. Which when? Which one? For the hub, for the funding for the hub.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm always. I'm in the paper a lot.
Mm-hmm. And how do you do then? Okay, so I consider myself a bit introverted as well. So. Yeah. I one-on-one with people, I'm fine, no worries at all. A small group of people, pretty terrible, especially when there's no sort of agenda or anything like that. But the public speaking for me is I feel pretty comfortable doing that. So it's that middle like 4 to 5 people in a group that I really struggle with, and that's where my introverted nature kind of holds me up.
Yeah.
How would you rate kind of those 3 situations for yourself?
So for me it's really easy. So I pick up on a lot of social cues from one-on-one interactions with people. So one-on-one is great. a small group of people is good as well. I can usually pick up on, who's not putting forward an idea because they're nervous, who's holding back on something so I can coax an idea out of them or whatever it might be, because I'm working with them one-on-one. It's when I have to stand in front of people and talk at them that I don't like. I don't like having to prepare something to talk to them about, because when I look out into the audience and it looks like they're getting disengaged or I just don't like it. I prefer to be much more speak much more on the fly, to pick up on where conversations and things are going and to lead it that way. So for instance, the event that I spoke at for you with the panels I'm not too bad with, right? Because that's a free-flowing conversation. So you might have some basic ideas on what you're going to talk about, but they can easily move and adapt, and I get passionate about particular subjects, and so I'll just go off and I'm fine. But yeah, it's just that standing on the stage fright.
But like almost a pre-prepared thing as well.
Yeah, and also I've got a really, really bad memory for like memorizing lines and things like that. So when I have to do something like that, I nearly always go blank, and I think I almost psych myself into it, because because it's happened to me a couple of times now. There's this picture a few years ago when we first started Startup Apprentice. Sam and I were accepted into this thing called the Challenge Cup in Sydney. So we went down to Sydney and we had to do this 60-second pitch. And so I got up on stage to do this 60-second pitch, and no joke, I had rehearsed it. I got 30 seconds in, forgot a line and froze, right? And no words would come out of my mouth. And there was about 600 or 700 people in the audience. And then I managed to blurt out like one sentence at the end. It was the most awful thing. But so a couple of people got a photo of me with this like microphone in my hand, and that got tweeted out across, social networks and went out across Facebook and everything. But then the last couple of years, it keeps appearing every time that the Challenge Cup is on. And everyone's like, oh, look at you, like up on stage. That must have been such a wonderful experience. And I just think, oh, if you had have known. Like especially because at the time, we're there we're teaching kids how to pitch, and then I stuffed up my pitch. Now there's imposter syndrome for you.
Right. Okay. That's incredible. So what do you think when you look back on that experience?
Oh, I think that I think you got to forgive yourself pretty easily. Right. I find it very funny now. I don't know. You forgive yourself, you laugh at yourself, you move on. I know that I'm not as good in a pitch competition, again, because of that slight introvertedness that I have. So I know I'm better off in a one-on-one. So, if I want to pitch the Startup Apprentice to someone, I'm better off getting a one-on-one audience with them and talking to them about it. So anyway, you live and learn.
Fascinating. I remember when I was young and I was always going to be a rock star, I had an experience on stage. I was about 13 and I was playing to the biggest audience I've still ever played to, about 2,000 people in Melbourne, and my guitar cut out. And it was just so embarrassing, and there's nothing I could do about it. It was a technical problem. So
you didn't try and make guitar noises with your mouth?
Oh no, I couldn't manage. They wouldn't have been able to hear, but that crippled me for just so long. Like because you just on stage, you're there, something goes wrong, like
yourself
bad
up.
luck. Yeah,
you think it's just
yeah.
What can you do? Then all you can do is just say, you know what, you did the best that you could. You prepared as much as you could. It happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. And probably no one else is that bothered about it, I'm guessing.
No.
Especially if you're still getting, everyone saying, hey, check this out.
You know what? It was so lovely, right? Afterwards, there was quite a few people in the audience that were very relevant to what we were doing. And it almost created a conversation piece, right?
Yeah, right.
I think they could tell that I wasn't too upset. I was, bottling it up so they couldn't tell.
Yeah.
But I definitely made sure that I was still approachable. And I had lots of people come up to me afterwards and just say, bad luck about the pitch, but, I'd like to hear more about what you were doing. And it did open up some good conversations for us. So, yeah. And Sam was brilliant anyway. She was just, don't worry about it.
Cool. Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. We'll have to wrap it up in a minute, but it's been amazing having you along, Sharon, today. Thanks for coming along and sharing your story and about all the interesting experiences you've had. Where's some places that the listeners can find you? They want to hear a bit more. They might want to hear a bit more about the Innovation Hub down the Gold Coast.
That's where my voice is loudest at the moment. So if you go to gchub.com.au, you'll be able to see everything that we've got going on there. We've got regular updates going out on the space and when it's going to be opening. There's also loads of events, and we've got an event feed from all of our partners and stuff going through. So if you just want to know what's going on the Gold Coast, it's the best place to go. Yep.
What type of events are you going to run?
Well, we will be running accelerator and incubator programs. To start off at the moment, we've just got we've got Startup Weekend on the 10th to the 12th of November. We've got on the 20th and 21st of October, we're partnered with a group called Intelli HQ, who are doing health tech. And there's a health innovation showcase that's being hosted by them in conjunction with Gold Coast University Hospital. So there's a showcase on the Friday. And then the Gold Coast Hub is hosting a design jam from the Friday night to the Saturday. So basically what we're going to be doing is taking challenges from within the hospital, and we'll have 24-hour blitz to create solutions to those challenges, which will then be presented back and hopefully open some opportunities for some proof of concepts and further conversations within the hospital department. So if you're interested in health tech, everyone knows it's notoriously hard to tap into the hospitals and get into those systems. So this is a really good way to get your foot in the door, meet some great people. There's lots of, we've got some really interesting attendees. We've got a lot of hospital people are looking at attending as well. So we'll have a really good mix of people coming up with these solutions. And so I think it'll be a lot of fun. And it's only 24 hours. So it's not like a startup weekend where you've got your whole weekend tied up. You still got Sunday to relax on the beach on the Goldie.
All right. And doing nothing on the beach, right?
That's it. As long as you don't have your laptop and phone with you.
Awesome, Sharon. That was fantastic. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, no worries.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Be The Push podcast. Show notes can be found at bethepush.com/podcast and clicking on the relevant episode link. I appreciate your company and look forward to talking to you again soon.